Good evening. Welcome to tonight's show. This is Environmental Issues. My name is Patricia Brady. We have a very exciting and a little bit scary, spooky type of a show tonight. You know, the holidays are approaching us. This is about kayaking in and around Staten Island. And I have two guests that do some of these things. Tony Rose is to my right. Hi, Tony.
Good evening.
How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having us here tonight.
Okay, you're nice and relaxed now. See, it's the
Clever
kayaking.
Yes,
Let me
it
tell
does
you.
help.
And to my left, we have Jacquelyn Krogh. Hi, Jacquelyn.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we have a lot of information to give out, and hopefully this will be nice.
Pique their interest.
Something like that. Let's
Yes.
hope so.
Yes.
Okay, we have to pique people's interest. So I'm going to start off with Jacquelyn. Jacquelyn, if it's
Go for
okay?
it. Works for me.
Okay, Tony. You know, sometimes.
We're all in this
He
together.
is a little
Okay.
He's a little needy sometimes, but it's okay.
But he's relaxed. So, okay, Jacquelyn Krogh. She's a captain.
Yes.
You're a captain?
Well, that's what I'm calling myself because I don't know what else to say.
You're a captain. Okay, of the kayak on Staten Island.
Yes, Kayak Staten Island.
Okay. So what does that mean? First of all, tell me a little bit of how you got started in kayaking and where did it all begin with you?
Well, it actually started, I happened to move to Staten Island because I worked on Staten Island.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Nebraska originally,
Nebraska?
which is not a particular
It's not an ocean state.
not an ocean state, but I grew up on a ranch, so I'm outdoorsy. I can do these things. So fairly athletic at that time, although that's starting to disappear, but that's okay. And I just wanted to do something with my son on weekends. I was splitting time with my ex-husband and where he was at, and so he couldn't really join a team. So I thought, give him something outdoor, something he can do, that he can say, this is what I do. When there's other kids on other teams, you know, baseball teams, hockey teams, whatever other things are going on. And he really enjoyed it. And so I saw a call for volunteers in the Staten Island Advance and started volunteering and got myself 2 kayaks. And I got the right kayaks. It's not that easy to choose the kayaks if you're not sure what you want to do in a kayak. The kayak is very important to every kayak has its use.
Own personality, sort of?
Well, some have its pluses and minuses on what style. If you want to go into the ocean, do you want to go on the bay? Are you just doing it on lakes? Are you fishing? So you got to pick the right boat to fit what you think you're going to want to do, which luckily I picked the right style, which was a sea kayak that you can go out into the bay and go do things in it.
Okay, Nebraska, I haven't been there. So are there lakes there, though, or are there waterfalls
there's
and
lakes
things like that?
And there's large, it's, flat river kayaking, which actually I have an old high school friend that started a whitewater kayaking group in a town in Nebraska because they had a space and some canals that they could do it in, and they built it up to be a whitewater kayaking in Staten Island, which they are in Nebraska, which they normally don't have.
Okay, so you mean you would follow the current?
Right.
Okay.
A fast-flowing current, which we don't really have on Staten Island for whitewater.
Did you practice? Did you practice there, though?
No, not at all.
Okay, so
No.
you just came in to New York City, the Bay Area,
Yes.
and you were ready to dive into this.
Yes.
Okay.
Somewhat. We don't dive, but yes. I just thought,
Well, that's a hypothetical.
you're on an
thing.
island, you got beach, let's do something.
Okay.
I don't like to travel somewhere else to do something fun, might as well just do it in your own backyard.
Okay, and how long have you been doing this?
About 10 years now.
So she's a real captain then, I guess. you know.
Well, yeah, it's a work in progress, but yes.
Okay. You are what you say you are.
Yeah.
Remember that. Okay.
Fake it till you make it. No, we don't want to do that.
Create your own reality.
Exactly.
And that's really possible.
Okay, Tony, we're going to come to you.
Welcome back.
Yeah, always welcome back, Tony. Tony's good. Okay, so tell us a little bit about some of these ghost graveyard type of. What happened? How did you get interested in this? Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, kayak is hip and hot and happening. Kayak is starting. 10 years ago,
No, that's true.
you didn't see a kayak.
No,
But now, go to the mall and you'll see someone's got a canoe on the roof of their car. You'll see kayaks going back and forth all the time. It's really become very popular, and it's a good thing because, like Jackie said, we're on an island, and if you just keep walking in any direction, you'll eventually hit water. Now, it's really not quite that easy. Access is limited in a lot of parts of Staten Island. Getting to the Ghost Fleet, I came home with significant poison ivy.
I did too. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, we went there recently, and I have a cordless hedge clipper. So we went in and cleared the way with the hedge clipper so that the people who went in wouldn't get infested.
what is this, a ghost fleet? I mean, Halloween's coming up, the holidays are coming up.
Well, what happened after World War II, there was a lot of surplus material. You could buy a P-51 Mustang airplane. You could just buy one. My uncle had an Indian Mustang, had an Indian motorcycle. Indian was the big name, you know, now it's coming back, Indian. And he got it in a crate, Army surplus, still packed in the cosmoline in a thick greased, and he put it together and ran it for years and years and years. So what happened after the war, there were a lot of ships, and there's a number of ghost fleets. There's one on the Potomac. They're like all over. What happened, people had these boats and didn't know what to do with them. So they said, okay, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna park them. So some of them were put in the Arthur Kill, all up and down the Arthur Kill. And they sat, and they never figured out what to do with them. They eventually holed out, leaked, and sunk in 10 feet of water. Since the water was so shallow, the water all around the harbor, the average depth of the harbor is only 18 feet. People worry about the ferry, you know, being blown up and sinking. If they're not careful, the ferry will run aground because the average depth is about 18 feet. So these boats went down in about 5 to 10 feet of water, and they sit, and they're just like ready to go. They look like they're ghosts. They're ready to take off. So the boats are there. Now, bit by bit by bit, they're disappearing. If you go on Google the Ghost Fleet of the Arthur Kill, and you'll see there's a lot of people have pictures of them. There's a guy we tried to get tonight, James Verdi. He did a documentary of the Ghost Fleet by drone. He's got drone shots, all the different boats, and some background information. And we'll look at some of the boats tonight. I have some pictures. We'll talk about some of the boats and some of the background. I don't have all the names, but it's just fascinating. It's like paddling into a history book.
How does it, I mean, what's the feeling though? Is it a little?
Sometimes it's a little eerie. Can we open up the Forgotten Fleet? And you'll see the boats, they're disappearing. Bit by bit by bit, the boats are rotting and falling apart.
So are they sinking?
They're not sinking, right?
No?
Just like here, what we're seeing on the screen now. This is a PowerPoint of the Forgotten Fleet, the Ghost Fleet of the Arthur Kill.
Now you've walked around these things.
Well,
These
you'll see as we go on. You have to go out there. They're in the water. This is the Astoria.
kinda
This was an
kayak.
old ferry boat. And you can Google the Astoria and find out the story of where this boat was, where it served, what its lifespan was, and what happened. So now where we go in, because a lot of the boats are gone now, the remnants of the fleet are in the Arthur Kill just off Rossville Avenue. Now this was the Blazing Star Tavern during colonial times. This building is old. What would happen is down the bottom, that was good. We're good. Next, down the bottom, in the bottom corner, people who were coming up from Philadelphia and headed into New York would take a coach, and they'd come up right where the bottom blue dot is. That's the Blazing Star is the side of New Jersey, and the Blazing Star is where the ferry went. It was called the Blazing Star Ferry.
Sure.
So across on the Staten Island side, we're back at the pictures. Yeah, the next picture. This is the neighborhood on Staten Island that was opposite, because the Blazing Star Ferry landed here. There was a cemetery. There was a town. Rossville was a town named after a Colonel Ross, and there's a whole history behind that. And there was a cemetery which fell into disrepair, was overgrown. And when you look at the stones, you'll see all the names of famous Staten Islanders. That building is now the Lava Lounge. No, you're good. You're fine. Okay. The Lava Lounge, and it still has rooms in the back, because the tavern was like the meeting place of a town. People would go there to find the latest news, to have a mug of grog. Travelers would come to the tavern, and there were rooms available for them. And then they would get another coach, which would take them to the ferry, where they would go to Long Island, which is what Brooklyn was called. Brooklyn, Queens, and everything was Long Island, or into Manhattan, which was New York City.
And you're saying coach, like stage coach?
Right, exactly,
Okay.
back in the day. We can stay on that. So.
Okay, what is
I
that?
think we've advanced too far.
Oh, we,
Can we go
okay.
back? Go back one slide, just to. Oh, okay, no, that is it.
Okay, so that's, it's
The-
still there.
If you go to where Rossville Avenue runs into the Arthur Kill,
Kill.
it T-bones Arthur Kill Road.
Okay,
There's a auto parts place and a car wash.
Yeah.
Directly across from the car wash is, you'll see the Blazing Star Cemetery.
okay.
Okay, and
Whoops,
back up, we had the map.
back.
Yeah.
There it
so
is.
there's our spot. The blue is the West Shore Expressway, and it comes along. You can see that little triangle at the top is the tip, the South Mound of Fresh Kills. We could do a night on Fresh Kills. It's amazing how this is the world's largest landfill to park conversion. It's everybody's worried about getting sick. It was only used for household waste, and it's capped. It's protected. The water is well. In fact, we'll see a little bit later. We're going to do the sneak peek that goes into Fresh Kills. Anyhow, where the blue dot is on this picture is where the boats are. The boats are clustered in there. Okay, and nature has come back. If you just leave it alone, all nature asks is leave it alone. Just leave it alone. And now the water's gotten cleaner after the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. Now all those things are under attack right now. But if we're strong and we can hold the environment, all the animals want is leave it alone.
And this is on Staten Island?
This is right off Rossville. That's right there.
Okay.
Right where the Forgotten Fleet is. Okay. And if you go into the Blazing Star Cemetery,
Okay, next.
yeah.
There we
Okay,
go.
we're talking about life. Now what this is, Spartina grass holds the shoreline from eroding.
Come on back to us.
That's fine.
That's it.
That's it. No, the
No,
Spartina-
I wanted to see the picture.
Yeah, stay with the pictures.
The picture.
They look prettier
That's
than we
nice.
do. What happens, now back to the Spartina grass.
Back.
It's not easy.
There it
Okay, so
is.
what happens, the Spartina grass in the fall falls down, lays in the ocean. Tides come in, the tides go out. After about a
Yeah.
month, the seeds get loose, they go out. They come back in the spring and plant themselves all along the shore. Now the mussels attach to that. So it's a habitat for mussels which filter the water, clean the harbor, and also they anchor the Spartina. So it's a commensal relationship where they both benefit.
That's
Okay.
incredible.
And you can walk better to get out there.
Yeah,
to get in your kayak.
Because it is kind of spongy.
It's a little spongy, and that helps hold you up.
Okay. And in fact, this was a commercial crabber. Now, I don't know if I want to go to a restaurant, eat crabs that are pulled out of the Arthur Kill. Because at one point, the Arthur Kill was a fire hazard. The Arthur
That's
Kill
such
went
wild.
on fire. All right. But the life is there. And the life has come back in the harbor. So it's nice to see that if you just leave it alone, the water gets cleaner. The water comes back.
And what is this now?
That's a crab. This, in fact, is a sturgeon. Sturgeons are back up and down the Hudson.
I thought that was freshwater sturgeon.
Sturgeons, yeah, they live in the Hudson. Remember, New York Harbor
Yeah.
is the mouth of the Hudson River. We're actually the convergence. New York Harbor is the Hudson River, which branches into the East River on the one side, and all along the Jersey side, there's Passaic and the Hackensack to the north, the Raritan River and the Rahway River all empty and create New York Harbor. So there's a lot of, it's an estuary. An estuary is where fresh water and salt water meet. It's in a place where oysters grow. It's a nursery for fish. And sturgeons are back. This is a 5-foot sturgeon that washed up on the East Shore. We're seeing river otters back. We haven't seen river
fish
otters
kills.
since the colonial days. So life is back in the harbor. So we're pretty pleased about that. So there's the car wash. You could park on the side of the auto parts, which is that red, white, and blue stripes in the back, pull your boat across, and if you cut through the cemetery, there's a little coastal plain. So, and we're very respectful, and in fact the NRPA has come a couple of times. We do cleanups. We clean up all the bottles and the glass at the roadside. We've cleaned up the cemetery. The Friends of Abandoned Cemeteries came in and cleaned this up, cut all the weeds, and we try and keep it nice. And we try and keep the roadside along the waterway nice. Okay? Now, when you cut through the bushes, the back of the cemetery, you open up into this coastal plain. There's this little plateau, grassy, mossy, spongy area, and that's a whole row of barges that go out to sea. Okay? That's Jim Scarcella. Jim's been a guest on your show. Jim actually introduced me to kayaking and canoeing in the harbor about 10, 20 years ago. And over his shoulder, you'll see a tugboat.
Yes.
Tugboat just sitting there, just like it's ready to go out to sea, but it's a ghost.
It's a ghost.
It's a ghost. Jim told me this is, he said, a Harrier hawk. I said, what? He can look at the signs. A Harrier hawk took a dump here. Harrier hawk fed and then found a nice quiet place, and he pulled some of his old plumage out, took a dump. And speaking of dump, the next picture is the former dump. You can see from where we are, if you look to your right, like we saw in the aerial show, these are the mounds of fresh kills, which at one point was supposed to be the highest point on the eastern seaboard of all of our trash. It's now capped, remediated, sealed. They've punched holes in the rubber so that methane gas is captured and sold to the national grid. The city makes $4 million a year selling the gas that would otherwise smell and come out, and you use it to heat your home, cook your food. Okay, so you get in the boat, and here we are. And you have to time it. You have to be there at high tide because it's a mud flat. If you go out and you spend too long and the tide goes out, you can see the boats are exposed. Well, you are stuck. It's a mud flat. The mud is exposed, and you would have trouble getting back in. So all of the boats have a story. Now, we don't know a lot of them. This one says the Bayou Plaquemine. I looked up. Plaquemine is a parish, is a county in and around New Orleans, all right, down the Mississippi Delta. So my assumption is this was an oil barge named after the Bayou Plaquemine. So this looks like, this was a ferry, but it looks like the carcass of a whale, you know, that's been stripped and attacked by seabirds, and the ribs are sticking out. And if you look on the left, you can see the smokestack. These are the ships, clearly. Look at the air ducts. No, that's it. These are air vents and the smokestacks. This is a boat from the 20s, from the 1920s. And after the war, they were obsolete, so they sat there. It's at, there's a marine salvage yard, and a lot of the boats that come in are stripped, and the metal is recycled. These guys are kind of old, kind of rusty, and they become historical artifacts. Now this boat, and Jim Verdi has the video about it. He knows the name. He's done the research. This boat was interesting in that it's a sub-chaser. During World War II, it was one of the few ships that had a black crew. There were 2 or 3 white officers, but all the crew were African American, and which didn't happen much because they were relegated to transport and loading and hauling. So these guys were actually out in combat duty. We'll see a picture later. You can see there's a crow's nest, and it's 4 or 5 bucket seats bolted to this crow's nest. So these people were up 20, 30 feet in the air. And when the boat listed, it must have been like snapping a whip.
Yeah, that thing is a tall boat.
But it's a very tall boat. And the interesting thing, it's wood. There weren't a lot of wood boats. What happened is during World War II, they were looking to make minesweepers, and the mines were magnetic. So a metal ship, a steel ship, would set off the mine. So they wanted to make some of the things, the coastal schooners and things like that, out of wood. They had to get these 80-year-old guys who were sitting on the docks whittling, who were retired for years and years and years, to come back and show them how to make wood boats. So, back to our show. Now, some people go diving to collect artifacts, like an anchor. We'd need a bigger boat. You could go up there with a cordless grinder, snap the anchor chain, and that'll go on somebody's front yard.
And you see the LNG tanks in the back.
Yeah, and there's actually 2 of them. So this is a real opportunity for people who are photo people, because there's just the angles, the colors, the shades. Some of the stuff really looks good as a black and white photo. New York City is advertising on the internet for English amateur photographers to come to New York to take pictures of the Forgotten Fleet, the ghost fleet of the Arthur Kill. Now this one says the New York, it's a ferry boat, the New York Bridge Authority. Who knew there was such a thing? But that's, it's a ferry, and if you go around to the ends, you can go through it like you're driving through the car deck. So we have pictures of some people coming from the opposite side, coming out like they're driving off of the ferry. And an anaconda. Yeah. No, it's not. That's a boom. That's a float. When somebody had an oil spill, you would encircle it with a boom and contain it until a slurper ship comes up with spongy materials and takes the oil away. So if you leave it, nature takes over. This is now habitat. The birds are living on the boats. If
There's osprey.
the marker buoy, the channel marker, is an osprey nest. And if you get real close, if you were to blow it up, you'd see in among the grasses, they've got what they need. They've taken styrofoam, nylon stockings, pieces of rope, and made a nest out of it.
Have you seen that, Jacquelyn?
I went out on the
Okay.
graveyard of ships.
Now
at the
this
time.
is from the water we see Fresh Kills, and right next to this you could go into the opening of Fresh Kills, and this fence was made so garbage wouldn't blow out into the water, and now it helps keep people off of the area until it is open to be a park, and it's going to be open within the next few years, bit by bit by bit. There's still trash there, but it's not dumped there. They have the sanitation gave over the whole place to Parks Department except for one area where they have a transfer station. So the trash comes in by truck, they compact it and put it in trailers and send it away by train or send it away by barge to lined landfill pits where people want this to take like if you had a strip mine is just a hollow pit in the ground and all the coal's been taken out. Now the rain collects in there, leaches lead and arsenic and natural minerals into the drinking water. If you can take trash, you put trash in it, bring it up, then cover that with contaminated mud. One of the things that the NRPA was formed 40 years ago to keep the Army Corps of Engineers from dumping contaminated mud back into the ocean. And the best place to put it after you dredge the channels is put it on top of landfill. So that goes on top of the landfill, and you mix it with Portland cement and it becomes a clay-like slurry. So that rainwater can't get in and take the dioxins and PCBs from our trash and go into the water supply. So you cover it with mud mixed with Portland cement and maybe even fly ash, some nasty things, but when you put them together, they achieve a good thing. You cover that with rubberized sheeting, heat sealed seams, and then put some fill on top of that, some topsoil, and you have these beautiful meadows. Now migratory birds are coming and using Fresh Kills. Okay, so there's Fresh Kills, that snaky piece. There's the Fresh Kills, there's, I forget the names of the creeks, but the gray area. In one sense, we're kind of lucky that Fresh Kills became a dump, because otherwise this would be abandoned used car lots, record junkyards, or ticky-tacky little vinyl boxes. But because it was a junkyard, it was a dump, and now it's transformed into a park, this is going to be the second largest park in New York City. It's second only to Pelham Bay Park, which is mostly water. So this has a lot of landmass, and we have a picture later. We did kayaking in a couple times a year. Parks Department does what's called a sneak peek, and you get to go into Fresh Kills. So the birds are there, and they're watching, they're making noise. And they're not really very bright because they scream at you, and when the kayak comes near, they fly about 50 yards down in the direction you're kayaking. So in about 30 seconds, they're going to scream at you, and then fly another 50 yards down to where you're going to be then. Now, this is the water. The water is really, if you look at the water, you would think that you're in California. You're on a rocky beach somewhere, off Ventura. But this is the Arthur Kill. This is off Staten Island, right outside Fresh Kills. So we took a break, Now, I don't know if that was blown up during Sandy or if the sanitation guys put it there so they could hang out of sight. But it was a great place for us to take a pause while we were kayaking. And you can see to the right, and in the next picture, well, life is back. Life is back. It's a wonderful thing.
So,
And
so
some of-
environmentally, the wild flowers and the
now that's
sea creatures are
wildlife.
back.
Right. That
And
was
there's wildlife
the last
in
picture
Fresh Kills.
is goldenrod. No, it's not great for asthma people or people with sinuses.
Oh,
The next, all right. But the nice thing is that this supports butterflies. Butterflies migrate from Central America up to Canada, and this is where they get their sustenance from. They live off the pollen. Okay. Now this freighter, again, James has the name. I don't know the name. This freighter was part of the Bikini experiment when they blew the atom bombs in Bikini Atoll in the 1950s. They put concentric rings of ships to see how many would blow up when they set the nuclear bomb off, and then how many of them. So this was one of the outer rings. After the bombs went off, a lot of the ships weren't damaged. They cleaned it up, they remediated it, and put it back into service. And it worked as a freighter for years and years. And I didn't realize the bow on the left is connected to that superstructure on
it's
the right.
a large
That's
ship.
a big boat. And low tide, you can see some of it. So there's the superstructure, there's the bridge. And we would not recommend, that ladder is mostly rivet and rust. We wouldn't recommend that you go up on these structures. Okay, that certainly would be insurance issues, but if you did, there's great views.
Are there any ghosts in there, though?
There might be. I didn't hear any.
You didn't hear, okay.
Okay, the portholes are all gone because remember, it's a marine shipyard. They've been salvaged, but there's some great views. You'll see in the Arthur Kill, there are square islands, or these little oval-shaped islands. What happened is that a boat sat in the water, and mud got in, grass started to grow, plants started to grow, and you can see how that wood boat is falling apart. If dirt got in there, grass would grow, eventually little shrubs would happen, this island would form up, and the boat would continue to rot. So now you'll see, and when you're over the outer bridge, you'll see these oval-shaped islands and say, isn't that odd? Or an absolutely square island where there was a barge that's now rusted into oblivion, but that little island is there to remember, that little ghost. Okay, so yeah, Jimmy came around to grab me, and again, this really, it's not a wise thing to do, to go on these boats. You really need
And
to
they're
be-
just going to get worse. So you
and-
don't
yeah,
know
over
when they're going to go.
time- Yeah, over time, it's just going to get worse and worse. But it's just, there's an aura. So we were back on the boat, and we went past the tugboat. And the tugboat is really interesting, but I know that is rusted through. We figured we had a good run. We got a nice bunch of pictures. We got a great experience, and we didn't have to call the Coast Guard. So it was time to say goodbye. So we said goodbye to the Ghost Fleet. Again, cross that little rocky path. The other side of those trees is the cemetery. And we left the ships behind and their memories, okay? And we asked the local...
Yeah.
Now, if you look through the stones, you'll see some of the names of streets on Staten Island.
There's
There's the
Sagayan.
Van Pelts, the Sagayans, right? And these this is where the families lived, and they became prominent Staten Islanders, and those they're there. So we said thank you to the ghost, and we
As,
left
as long as you went in peace, they know
yes, we
you.
did.
you're
Yeah, they
in
know we're
peace.
not out there. We're just out there to it's our cathedral. Sunday mornings out on the water.
Ah, nice. Wow.
It's really, I mean, it really is beautiful. It's really peaceful. I always tell people that's my cathedral. Sunday morning, quiet, out on the water. I'm a North Shore guy. I go out on the Kilvan Cull.
How's the water, though? Is it rough with the currents?
No. I'm a weenie boater. Like I'm a weenie diver. Weenie divers live to dive another day. If it's choppy, there are days it's choppy, it's nasty, so you watch the weather.
Yeah.
You know, and you make sure that we only go out when it's
So
relatively
you've
safe.
been out?
Yes, I've been
Oh,
out to I helped with the tours at Fresh Kills, the sneak peeks that he was talking
Oh,
about.
so tell us a little bit about the sneak peeks. What is that about?
Well, that's now, there's the Fresh Kills Park, and they put on a sneak peek probably twice a year, and Kayak Staten Island helped them start that, helped them organize how to do it. They now do tours. They've started to do them themselves. And usually you sign up for a tour by going on their website for the Fresh Kills Park. And it's generally a trip up the Fresh Kills and maybe half an hour each way, and then another tour goes. So usually
And
they get 2
here's-
tours. Yes, that's
This
the
is
start
Fresh
of it.
Kills. This is, there's a muddy bank, and that's where we put the boats out.
So that's where you would
might as well bring
start.
those up.
Yes.
And and Jackie, you can talk about what we're seeing here.
We have more pictures. This is
Well,
nice.
this is from the sneak peek. Now, it's not
Okay.
just kayaking. They also have rollerblades,
Yes,
scooters,
bicycling.
bicycles. They have
They usually
food
have some
trucks, and they do tours. There's an osprey nest that they built.
And every time I've gone out,
Yeah.
I've either seen a deer, I've seen a coyote. I say coyotes. You say coyote here. I say coyotes. I'm from Nebraska.
You
So-
say calamari.
I usually don't even say it, but
Is it alive? That's the thing.
yes, now
Oh, the
in those
calamari.
hills,
Yeah, yeah,
you think you're in
You think you're in
Western
Connecticut or
Kansas
somewhere.
because there's not many trees yet that have really grown in.
Well, they can't because the dirt
Because
is
of
too
the
narrow.
rubber,
They've shaped it. They shaped that dirt that they put there to make some shallow bowls so they can put like shrubbery and low plants that have wide roots. But because there's such a very narrow layer of dirt, they
Yeah.
can't put trees. So they're mostly open meadows.
And it's really beautiful. You're traveling along there and you'll see deer.
So they bring people in from the gate, and we've already set up the boats and whatnot.
So how many people usually on a tour? Is this a good crowd here?
Yeah, there's about 20, I think, seats in the boats,
Right.
25 or so. The Parks Department have received some boats, and it can depend on what they have. But they have a sign up on their website. So once it's full, they'll give you, usually
and
it's 2
kayaking is
tours.
usually the first thing that fills
Oh,
up.
yes. They fill
on
up.
Sneak
And there's
Peek.
folks from Manhattan have come
Oh,
out.
Queens. People come in from Queens.
Yes.
How often do they go out? Is it a weekly thing? Or
Twice
I
a
think
year.
They'll twice a year for the
Month?
sneak peeks, but they also were having their own tours themselves a
Different
couple
kayak
times.
events?
Yes, kayak events.
As it opens, they'll look for a vendor to run kayak tours in Fresh Kills.
Yeah, I
They're going to
think-
open it in stages. There's 5 areas in Fresh Kills, and every 5 years or so, 'cause they put all their money in one area, and as that's ready, that'll open, and then a couple of years later, I think next year.
And this isn't even going to be the permanent kayak spot.
Oh, thank God.
One of the other, I know. That was one of the reasons we don't do a public program where everybody just comes up and kayaks a little bit and comes back.
Yeah.
Because as the tide went out, that is not an ideal beach. And so Kayak Staten Island finally said, why don't we just do tours? Do tours, the people enjoy it more, they're actually going somewhere, and that's not going to be the permanent beach. There's other parts of the park are opening. They will then put a permanent, like a dock, or they will design something for kayaking, because that beach isn't ideal. It's serviceable, but not ideal.
Back to sneak peeks, we could, you'll see, I want to show about, you were talking about different kinds of kayaks.
Oh,
If
yes.
we have some pictures, we have pictures in the sneak peek. Was that the
Okay.
end?
No,
If we go forward, you'll see people in the water. Once we get some people in the water, some of the people, what we have behind us is a sit-on-top kayak. There's also sit-inside kayaks, and there's some of them on the pictures.
And that's something one of my little pet things that I always speak about when I do advocacy for kayaking is you'll see some safety brochures. Wear a PFD, wear a vest, don't go alone. But a lot of times they don't go into what boat is appropriate for what body of water or what environment.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Now on the
Right.
screen now, we're showing a couple of kayaks that are enclosed, sit-inside
Yes.
kayaks, and there's a little lip around the opening. You wear a skirt, and the skirt has an elastic band, and it fits right in there, so water can't get in. Because if water gets in, it's stuck inside that boat.
Sure. Gee.
So sit in, where you have your legs in, are usually a faster boat, but like he said, if you don't, that takes a little more experience. A sit on top, like what he brought, that is usually a little safer. You can get yourself back in them quicker. However, when to go in the New York Harbor, I feel the boat should be at least about 12 feet long because there's currents, can be choppy water, the environment can change. So,
And
if,
there's,
so that's a bigger boat. This is about 12 feet, and that's what you should probably be in to
and
be
some
out
boats
in the
leave a
harbor.
wake. And when you
Right.
you have to go nose first into a wake. If the wake hits you from the side, any wave hits you from the side,
Yeah.
You
it
can
can
tip.
flip you over.
Okay.
The boat I use is a longer boat. It's 16 feet, and it's about 22 inches wide. So that's a little more narrow, so you need a little bit better balance. I have a spray skirt that I put on.
Is that for
I
one
took-
one person?
One person.
Okay.
And I did take classes in how to get yourself back in the boat if you were to tip over. I've never tipped over, not on purpose.
Knock
so,
on wood.
yeah.
Okay.
Done it with training, but so, and those boats are made for waves. My boat almost behaves better when I'm going in a current, going through some waves. If sometimes I'm amazed what I went through. It just goes right through because it's narrow and a longer boat. So that's easier to go places with if you want to go somewhere in your boat. Like I could go to Sandy Hook over in Jersey, or I've gone around Manhattan, or go over to Coney Island. You're not supposed to land at Coney Island though, so that's a long trip.
Okay.
So you can see in the background there's some sit-on tops. Maybe
Yeah.
the next picture has the sit-on top like we have. Oh, that's from underneath the Osprey
Yeah,
nest.
the Osprey.
They tried, by the Bayonne Bridge, most of the bridges, they have, the city has put nest boxes because they want to keep the birds. The birds' droppings tend to rust the bridges. So they've put boxes, and there's some guy from the state, that's his job, is to go check the boxes, ban the little birds when the birds come to. So we give them an orientation, we tell them how to do it, and then put them in the water. And there's a sit inside.
Yes, that's similar to the boat I have at home. Is a longer boat like that you sit in, you see the opening at the top. And
What are the price ranges? Are they expensive or model-wise?
there's different materials they can be made of. This is made out of polyurethane, which is almost indestructible.
So this one here behind us?
Yes. And that's a tough boat. That
You know,
can
you
go
tell the-
rocky beaches. There you can also have a fiberglass boat, like a sailboat would be made of. Those are lighter, but they can break a little easier, get damaged, but you can repair them. So that's not, a lot of boaters repair their sailboat. There also is carbon, which is light, but that's a pricey boat. That's a fancy boat. I don't
Okay,
have that.
so all price range.
Like
So,
bicycles,
yeah,
as
like-
much as you want to spend, someone
Yeah.
will sell you a boat.
To get
for
all
that kind
your
of money.
equipment with a new boat like this would be about $1,000, but you can get these used. And these, like I said, are pretty indestructible. So a used boat isn't going to really hurt you that much.
Your viewers, go and look in the backyard. There's that teeter-totter, that little Tykes
Yes.
slide in the backyard.
Yeah.
That's still there, and your kid is now a junior in college. So they are fairly indestructible. The only thing that we recommend is that you don't leave them in the sun, because you'll
They can
see
get
those
brittle.
little Tykes. The ultraviolet rays tend to bleach the plastic, and they get brittle and chalky. So if you're going to stay them out, put them outside, throw a tarp over it, or stick them under your front porch or something like that to keep them out of the sun. But they are fairly indestructible.
Yeah, so that'd be about $1,000. I think my boat, if it was new, would be about $1,600. I got it used, so it wasn't as much. And those carbon can be up to $3,000, $4,000. A carbon long 16-foot boat.
And you feel safe in these kayaks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, like he said, I'm a little bit of a weenie. I've been in some circumstances that I'm like, I need to go to shore. I should not be
You
out
just
here
head
right
back to
now.
shore
It's
then.
a little, yeah, but
Never
like
be
I
afraid
said,
to
my
bail.
boat does better than you think. You go through some waves, you think, oh, and it goes right through because that's what it's made for.
Wow.
The Eskimos had it right. They knew what they were doing. It's warm. It's warmer to be in a sit-in kayak. Once you're in your spray skirt, you're the warmest person
Out there.
around, yeah. You're almost sweating even if you're out in cold. You don't want to be out in cold water though. In near Staten Island, I'll go out with a wetsuit and what's called a dry top until about the first part of December. Then the water gets very cold and you don't really want to go back in until mid-April.
Okay,
Yeah, the
so
funny thing
that's-
is the water is colder in April and May.
Yes.
What happens, the Gulf Stream, comes up along the East Coast, and it moves north as the season goes on. So the water is warmer, and then in the winter, again, it moves further south. So the water in April and May is warmer. I mean, is still cold. It's still cold until the Gulf Stream kind of moves up into the world.
I've read a rule, and I think that would work for Staten Island, is once the water gets below 50 degrees, you either need to have a spectacular day. You want it to add up to about 100 degrees, 50 degrees outside temperature, air temperature, and not less than 50 degrees in the water temperature. People have what are called a dry suit, where you're completely sealed in, and they go all year, but that's not for me either.
You know, in the James Bond movies, James Bond goes out in his little boat and he zips his suit open and he's got a tuxedo underneath. That's a dry suit.
Yeah.
There are wetsuits, which are neoprene rubber, and water gets in and the suit holds it close to the body, and so it warms that water. That's a wetsuit. But you can also get a dry suit, which
That
has
doesn't
a
even allow
waterproof
water in
zipper
at all.
and a seal at the neck and a seal at the wrists, and boots are molded in, so you don't get wet at all.
Were you going to demonstrate a little
Sure.
of...
Let's talk a
I
little bit
think Tony's
about.
going to like
Let's go over some of the
ashore.
toys. Let's see, I think I have enough wire.
Oh,
You
I'm
have-
wired. Okay.
You're wired there.
Well, the boat itself,
Tony.
let's start with the boat. The basics that you need a boat to go kayaking.
It's good.
There's sit insides and sit on top. This is a sit on top. It's basically a juice box with scupper holes. There's holes here that allow the water. What happens if water spills over the side? This is an opening to the underneath. So it's open to the sea. So whatever the level the water is on the outside,
Right.
the water is in
It
here.
self-drains itself.
So, right, any water that goes in drains. Now, this is a sit on top, a tandem, a two-person boat. And I recommend if people are going to get one, get a tandem boat, because
Yeah, these can still be used as a single.
I can set this up as a single. In order to balance yourself properly, you'd put the seat here.
The seats are movable.
Seats, right. And then this way, if you're just one person, you sit here so your body weight is centered. So I can run it as a single.
Yeah.
But if I want someone to be able to call 911, I can also run it as a double. Plus, when you're running a tandem, you can take a break once in a while. The other person
yeah.
can keep paddling.
I did I circumnavigated Manhattan, and I was in my own boat by myself. There was young guys in doubles like this, but my boat should be faster, but with two young guys, I had a hard time keeping up with them, even though they are in a bigger, kind of wider boat. So they can keep moving, and anytime I stop to rest, especially if there was a current, I'm like, yeah, I'm done, okay, gotta keep going. So
So the basic setup, this setup is about $1,000. Now what that means is that the boat is about $600.
What's this little round thing?
Oh, nice thing is you can see here, these are hatches.
Snacks.
These are hatches. you can take
Snacks.
take a circular saw and cut this open, or you can just leave them intact. If you cut them open,
you get a hatch.
you have a hatchway.
Oh, I see.
So you can get a little rim with a basket that can slip in here. What I have is
Extra
I've set it up
paddle.
as an extra paddle.
Oh,
So that in
nice.
case my paddle
Exactly.
should wash away,
You're up a creek
get
without a
swamped,
paddle.
and lose my paddle, I have a paddle in here that I can just screw it together, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
But you could, in my large boat, I have large hatches. I could put a tent, I could put little stoves, I can go camping. Just take everything with you. Those boats actually are made for carrying a lot of stuff. I could probably put as much as in a very small subcompact car. I can put that much stuff in my long boat.
Now we can tell this hatch hasn't been open in a while, unless your viewers have smell-o-vision.
You didn't clean the inside of your boat,
I've been
Tony?
inside of the boat.
You know, mine's got leaves in it.
So the boat is about $600. A set of a pair of seats is about $100.
Yep, the paddles.
Pair of paddles, $100. And you need a personal flotation device, a PFD.
What's that? Personal?
A life vest, a life jacket.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Personal flotation.
And they're all different sizes, from extra small children to extra large adults.
Sure.
And New York state law says that every craft, every boat must have a personal flotation device for every occupant in the boat. We are more stringent. Kayak Staten Island, NRPA, SINK, the Staten Island North Shore Kayakers, all the kayak groups that we're affiliated with, our rule is you wear it. You wear it. If you're in a boat, you're wearing the vest. Because I
mean, you
fall
never
out, I
know.
bang my head on a piling.
Yeah.
Well, what good is it doing me that there's a vest in the boat?
Yeah.
So our rule is,
Plus
if you're out on the water, you wear the vest.
It's safety. Safety,
Well,
number
safety
one.
is the first thing, is the first
Yeah.
consideration. Now, my vest, what I tend to, I have an old
That's
scuba
right.
called a horse collar. This, you would use this, and you can inflate it from your scuba tank, and it's got a crotch strap so that you can't lose.
It doesn't float over your head.
So the basic setup, you need a vest, paddles, the boat, the seat. You
And-
can get kayaks for $200 or $300 at Dick's. But be careful, be careful,
Yes.
be careful.
Anything shorter than 10 feet, I don't think should be in New York Harbor. Also, it shouldn't be too light. It just gets tossed around in current.
What the little ones are made for is for shooting the
water.
rapids. Being able, if you're short, you make a
Oh,
quicker
I
turn.
see, yeah.
And
Yeah.
the other thing is, now be careful, I don't want to bang this on your heads, but I want to tip it this way. If you look at the bottom, you'll see there's a spine.
Right
There's a
here.
ridge
Right here.
along the bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
That ridge, and all along the back, you can see it's like a rudder. That helps the boat track straight.
Those other boats don't have that.
See, they're made
So
to
you're
do quick
kind
turns.
of, you're at the whim
Yeah.
of the wind. In addition, many of those boats don't have, if they fill with water, they don't float. My boats have bulkheads that the boat will float even if I flip over.
Well, there should be, you should put with those boats, like I have a sit-inside boat, a two-person sit-inside boat, and you have bags, like bags, dry bags that fill and stuff in the nose and stuff in the stern, so that if you did flip, the boat's not going to go under. If you have a
Some of those don't even
sit-inside,
have space for that. So
if you have a sit-inside, if you flip the boat, you can get back in the boat, but it is going to be filled with water.
Right.
So for a sit-inside, one of the options you need is a bailing pump. So this would
That's good.
pump out your
Wow.
boat.
That's
and
great.
you play with it and
And
score
some
each other.
people are a little decidedly more low-tech. But it works. It works.
If you have to bail, that's the way to do it.
Don't spend a whole lot of money. Like Jackie was saying, you can get a used boat. You can find a used boat.
Yeah, these are.
This is about $600-700. But the point being, how often are you going to spend this? You spend $1,000 for your basic setup. This boat is probably 10 years old, and I'm probably not going to have to buy another boat because, see, I had an old wood boat, and it was very nice, but it was heavy. Had 800 layers of epoxy paint put on it, and you had to baby it. You had to lift it up over the guardrails at the end. You couldn't drag it across. This I just drag across the pavement behind me, and I'm not worried about
Do you
it.
put it on a roof or does
What
it
I
have
do is
little,
I have 2 bars across my car,
I see.
and I put the nose up, and then I flip it sideways so that it goes across the luggage rack. You can buy foam rectangles that you can put under the boat. You can put it. You don't even need a rack. You put it on your roof. You put your foam block here, and then tie across,
Strap it.
and maybe a nose and a tail. Depends. To get here tonight, I put this on my rack, and I put 1 strap over. If I'm going on a highway, I'll put 2 straps. If I'm going on a long distance, I'll put a nose
So it doesn't start
rope so it doesn't catch the wind and go sideways.
Yeah.
start bouncing. The one upgrade that I think once you get a setup and you say, okay, I like kayaking, I'm going to keep doing it. I was told this by a experienced kayaker. He said the first upgrade your paddle. If you're paddling long distances, a fancy carbon paddle is a nice thing.
Oh,
Those big plastic
And even more simple than that, there are, I have a pair, before I knew what we were getting into, a pair of very flat, squared off paddles. You can see this is a curved paddle, and it catches the water better. It's going to give you, you won't have to
and
work
carbon
as hard.
is so much lighter.
Now this is set up so it's flat, so that when I'm paddling like that, you can also, you'll see sometimes in some of the ones we
Yes,
have at
if
Kayak
it's
Staten
windy.
Island, they have feathered them. You can see the 2, there's an angle. So this is flat, and then when I twist it, that's flat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what that's about is air resistance. When I'm paddling with this one's in the air, I'm cutting through the air without wind resistance. And then I twist my wrists a little bit,
now that one
and when
doesn't
that
have-
one's in the water, then this one is. We're really not worried about our aerodynamics paddling around Staten Island. But it's certainly, it's a consideration.
If you're going long distances, it's
Oh,
not
for
a bad
sure,
move.
for sure, for sure, For sure, for sure.
Because think about it, if you're in a boat, let's say 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours,
Yeah.
every little ounce that you're not holding up helps. So a carbon paddle would be my first upgrade.
Now that's the basics. That's get you in the water. There are other things that are also helpful, things that people may want to get. Certainly one of the first things that I got was gloves.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the water,
It starts
your
to
hand's going to
blister.
chafe. And the paddle's wet. And any gloves, just some contractor gloves from Home Depot,
Cyclist.
bicycle gloves,
yeah.
Gloves that you wear in the gym. You need a sound emitting device. We have a whistle, okay?
And on a couple places, have it on your jacket, have it on.
And redundancy. See, we come from the Department of Redundancy Department. We believe in backup. I have a whistle here. I have a whistle I also keep on the gloves. Some people have air horns. There's air horns on a can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And gloves are helpful. Certainly hat with a brim,
Yeah, oh,
wide brim.
I made that critical error once.
That's a wonderful thing.
Guess what? You can't wipe your
Sunglasses.
hands, or can't wipe your face to get the water out of your eyes if you've got a paddle.
Yeah. So
That was always a hat, even with a little brim.
and sunblock. You're out there on the water, and the sun hits the water, reflects back up on top of you. Okay. This is a dry bag. If you want to put your phone, you want to put. Now they go everywhere from sandwich-sized bags up to duffel bag
Fanny
size.
packs, that's a nice.
So what you would do is, if you have a telephone, you have a camera, you stick it in your dry bag, and then you curl it down,
To the size.
and it snaps. And then you can snap it into your boat so that if the boat does go over or you hit a thing, that this stays with you. And dry bags are really handy if you want to have spare clothes, your food, things like that.
They also have pretty inexpensive ones specifically for your phone that you can still use your phone if you need to through
gee.
the. And it's
Okay.
not that much. And that I like that because if I need to use my phone, I don't have to fiddle to get my phone out.
Yeah.
I can still at least make a call or take a picture or what.
And here's a bag. This is a bag probably for the phone.
Where do you get that?
Dick's
Where would
had online, to be honest, but
online?
Dick's has some too.
eBay. Some people immediately go to Amazon. eBay is my go-to place.
I like Amazon.
I immediately go to eBay.
So it's computer. You go to the computer then
right.
most of the time.
You can
Most of the
certainly
time,
buy them
Dick's
at
has
Dick's, REI. A knife, some sort of cutting implement, whether it's EMT shears or a dive knife. And again, there's a guy, Gary Gentile, who writes dive books. And one of the things he talks about is don't buy a knife that's too expensive to leave at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay? The big rule is there's more in a store. Is this the knife to die for? You drop this over the side and you want to go in after it? No. eBay has pages and pages and pages. There's more in the store.
Okay.
Because you could buy a hard hat diver, historical brass case, screw-in knife for $300.
Come on around,
I don't think I
Tony.
want to do that.
The time's flying by.
Yes. Cool.
Flying
We
fish.
were afraid we weren't going to have enough.
Flying
Yeah.
water, ghosts, everything. And just let me know about what you have found. There's some old bottles here. What
Well, we
are
have
these
pictures
things?
of animals. The animals are beautiful. Just the weather is beautiful. Artifacts. Slide those over. Let's talk a little bit about bottles. One of the things, and the reason that we've gone to reusable bottles, is that the shoreline is filled with plastic bottles. This is this.
Yeah.
This is a blank. This is heated by laser, put into a mold, and expanded, and it becomes this. And then this goes out on the shore. This floats out to Antarctica, breaks into micro pellets. Worms eat the little micro pellets of plastic. Crabs eat the worms. Little fish eat the crabs, and we eat the big fish.
That's
so
not good
eventually,
for the
PCBs,
environment.
dioxin, it's all in there. Now it's
Okay, we have about 2 minutes left.
cool.
Oh boy,
Cool. Well, we're wrapping down. We're running
Yeah.
down.
it's
I think
okay.
they got the-
We're talking about history.
Yeah.
This is history. In 1895, you couldn't flip the bathroom light on. You had to reach into the medicine cabinet and know what you were getting in the dark. So a bottle, triangular bottle with the little ribs on the side, that was a medicine bottle, and you needed to know what you were grabbing. The beer saved civilization. Back when the water wasn't safe, before we had municipal water supplies, everybody drank beer. They would water it down, grog, for the kids, not realizing when you heat the beer, when you brew the beer, the heat kills the germs. Beer was safe to drink, the water wasn't.
That's what I did on a college trip to Mexico.
Sure.
I knew that's
Stayed
the
with
way
beer.
I had to go.
Beer was healthy. Sure. Here's, this is dental powder. This is Sanitol. And again, by reaching in, you could feel the ridges on one side, the flat on the other, and you'll know what you're dealing with.
Something else.
My favorite bottle. My favorite
Get
bottle.
the favorite bottle.
My
in,
favorite
because time
bottle.
is going by.
My favorite bottle is not a collectible because it's hazy from being in underwater in the mud and the sand. But this is, back in the day, you had to worm your kids as well as worm your dog. And this is Bumstead's worm oil. It
Okay.
says one bottle kills 100 worms. Children cry for it. Philadelphia, PA.
There's no little note saying that you won lotto.
I
like on the
did.
commercial?
I did find a message in a bottle under the Narrows Bridge at one point. It was in a Coke bottle.
Okay. I want to thank you, Tony. Jacquelyn. I think
Thanks
this
for
was
having me.
pretty
Informative.
intense, informative, ghosts, the whole 9 yards.
Plugs.
Plug it.
NRPA.com. We do beach cleanups. We do advocacy for the ocean. We get out on the water. www.nrpa.com.
kayakstatenisland.org, and you can email us at kayakstatenisland@gmail, and you'll be on our email list. If you ask me to put you on it, I will
We
do
want
it.
volunteers.
We
It's a
love
lot of fun,
volunteers.
and
It
you
is
can pick the brains of the other volunteers and find out what kind of boat you think you might want to buy,
Environmental also.
where to go.
Yes, we do beach cleanups with that same group.
Beautiful. It's nice. Okay. Glad to have you. Thank you for
you so
being
much.
here. Happy holidays.